perfectly legal to take the very last clam. That's kind of a problem. I don't know if there's another natural resource in New Jersey that you're allowed to exploit to that extent.
So this area, Parker Run, supposedly like 25, 30 years ago, there was as many as 30 commercial boats out of there, guys clamming and oystering, crabbing. Now there's none. And then same thing, one creek up, Westacombe Creek, there was 30 or so boats, and now there's our boat, but not really a lot of industry around anymore. People always ask me, what are you going for? And I'm like, well, I'm not really going for anything, like, or have any luck today? I'm like, I'm not fishing, I'm farming. Grew up working on fishing boats, and then I went to the University of Rhode Island and studied aquaculture and fisheries, and worked on an oyster farm in Rhode Island, and I just thought it was really neat. Said I wanted to start something like that in New Jersey. So we started growing oysters about 5 years ago. We had to restart after Sandy. Our first spot where we started growing oysters was right near the Maniloking Bridge. Maniloking was probably the worst hit town. We lost our boat and pretty much all the gear, and probably 99% of the oysters died. Since the restart, I guess we're about to enter our third season now. Since then, we've gotten actually new ground in the southern part of the bay, which has been a lot easier to grow an oyster. The northern part of the Barnegat Bay, there's a lot less flow. It's further away from the inlets. It's more of a brackish environment, and then it gets saltier as you get to the south. You want saltier water and you want more flow when you're growing oysters. It's a lot more conducive of an environment down here. We have a higher salinity, we have a little bit more flow. We have more dramatic tides here, which obviously makes more flow. That allows us to get an oyster to market size a lot quicker. Here we can float, but we also put stuff in gear that goes on the bottom. Bottom gear is probably a third the cost of floating gear. You don't really need like long lines, you don't need anchors, they're self-anchored just by the weight of them. So we like it down here a lot more. I mean, that's the name of the game, is grow the best oysters you can with the least amount of money. So the limits of our lease are like, this is the southeast corner, and then the northeast corner is that PVC pole over there. So that's like 1.8. It's like 1.85 acres, and then this lease over here is like 1.8 acres, a tiny bit less. Really bad wind. The farm is a mess right now. It's like, if we came back in 8 weeks, everything would be in order, it'd be color coded, we'd have more seed out, but we're constantly like cleaning up post winter. We want to get everything deeper. Does anyone have ice in here? April. How many oysters do we have out here right now? We have like maybe like 1.5 million, 2 million. Beginning stages of a oyster, just like any animal, are very important. You know, you want them to be healthy and happy. This spot is exposed to the south, so when we get a southern wind, we get a lot of wave action, like we had yesterday and the day before. And it'll just clean all of our gear and clean all of our oysters. And it'll also chip the bills out and smooth them. So like if you look at all these shells, they're really smooth, and they're pretty. So this stuff we haven't touched since last fall, and you look at it, you know, I don't know, if I had to guess, it's probably like 250 to 300 oysters. So you want to thin them out so that they get the resources that they need. So if this is 300 oysters, 4 of them are dead from the winter, so that mortality is just a hair over 1%. Past 18 months, our average mortality's probably been maybe 5%. Before that, we had last winter was really bad, and the winter before were really bad, so we had probably in like the 40% to 50% range, which whenever we're doing any of our numbers and planning for the future, we always account for 50% mortality, which is a very conservative number, and then if you get under that number, you're ahead of the game. So, that's an oyster farm.
Well, it's funny to think that Tuckerton used to be called Clam Town. And that is because so many people were making a living out in the bay clamming. And I've heard stories about, you know, when the oyster season opened and you almost couldn't even move out on the water because there were so many boats and people who were clamming and you could just walk from boat to boat.
Tuckerton Bay, which was the best bay along the New Jersey coast. Everybody went to Tuckerton Bay to catch the clams. Just reproduced itself year after years, you might say century after century. All went to stop. Dead. It's a dead bay. Clamming, as we used to know it, where a clammer would go out every day and harvest his clam going out in the, we call it the wilds or the public beds, thousands and thousands of acres, nothing there much anymore.
I find it's very difficult these days to find people that are still going out and making their whole living on the bay. We have people that do it part-time, but it's not a living in the same way that it was.
And the clamming has that used to be one of the bigger than the oyster business, but I don't know what happened. Something happened when we used to have 100 clammers, now we got 4 or 5.
My own families have fallen part of it because, you know, we've sold, I mean, my great-grandfather sold 9 million chowders a year, you know, for I don't know how many years. I mean, that's an amazing biomass to take out of the bay. So I'm a 5th generation family business, 1st generation commercial farmer. Well, that's kind of the change in direction in the industry. 40 years ago, the majority of your clams out of the bay were harvested by folks who were like a hunter-gatherer type process. You go out, you just find what you find, you bring it into the dealer, and it's his responsibility then to sell it. Now, it's more of we conceive the animals in controlled environments, grow them to the point where they can take care of themselves out in the bay. We allow them a growth period, reharvest them, and sell them to market. So it's much more of a farm than it used to be. I started in South Green Street in Tuckerton, down the road from my fish market, and Hurricane Sandy destroyed the hatchery. After the place was destroyed from the storm, I approached the marina owners here and asked them if they would be nice enough to offer me a portion of their yard. Here I am over in the corner, my little miniature clam farm. I'm trying to rebuild back to where I was at the old hatchery. And it's a slow process, it's expensive. Each year we step up a little more. We'll see where it goes. The commercial farmer does a better job of restoring shellfish to the bay than all other entities combined. So what we're going to do is we're going to take naturally occurring oysters from Barnegat River right behind me out here, and we're going to take them with hatchery-produced larvae and put them side by side on the bottom of Barnegat Bay and determine which one yields the greatest biological gain for the money invested. So we know, if there's restoration funds available, what makes sense to spend our money on, this or that. You feel responsible. That's why I'm stepping into the restoration end of, I don't want to say business, but the restoration end of my opportunity to kind of not really, I don't want to say I'm putting back or correcting, or any mistakes that we've made, but I do it because I can. There's a cultural kind of battle with the age-old farmer who's accustomed to just going down to his boat, going out into the bay, and finding his day's pay. Now you're forced to invest quite a bit of money and not know if it's going to succeed or fail. So it's almost like going to the roulette table and trying to put your money out and hope you hit the right number and play the odds. This is a gamble. It's almost a tragedy to see it happen, but the natural resource isn't there to support the culture anymore.
It's pretty rough life out there. Of course, when you get in, sure, you're home and you live normal life, but you're out there in the rough weather, and a lot of seas and heavy seas and swells and stuff and storms and things, and you keep on going because you have orders and you got to get those oysters to fill your orders.
There's hard things about it, obviously, physically, but also mentally. It's like, I have to rely on myself to get a paycheck. But the reward can be greater.
It's a struggle. It's been going on for years.
I mean, I joke that it was a stupid decision. I love my life and I love my job. In New Jersey, especially at the shore, we have this heritage behind the baymen, and generations and generations of families have had the bay provide a food source for them and a living for them and a way of life. That's kind of been lost. One thing that we wanted to do is bring that back, and it might be a tiny little bit different in the sense that we're farming them and not really harvesting wild oysters, but I think bringing that story back is important to the culture of this entire state.